split it, so they have part of the increase at the beginning of the year and part of the increase halfway through the year, and that can save some money and also achieve some ends for the employees as well.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Rep Pisnell.
Is this a starting salary or is this a range?
No, so thank you, and thank you for interrupting me and slowing me down here. So the crossed out salaries is the base salary. So I called these statutory salaries because these are the salaries for executive branch employees that are set by statute.
Okay.
So that is the base salary you see that's crossed out because that will be replaced with the new numbers that we're going to get from DHR within the coming days. So it's not a range, it's the salary for 20. So for example, in the column to the far left, that was the base salary of the governor, $222,371 in fiscal year. What was that? Fiscal year 25. So July 14, 2024, right?
Yeah.
And then the increase was $234,379 for following year.
So my question then is, so in 2027, let's just round it off, it's $245,000. And then in 2028, we elect a new governor. Does that new governor start at the 200 where that base left off at?
No, it will be the annual salary that is provided for that year. So on July, I believe it's going to be July 14th because it's always the beginning of the pay period. So I think it will be July 14th of 2026. The governor at that time will earn that salary that's set in statute.
It becomes a new floor. And it'll carry into like whoever wins the election next because it's assigned to the.
And that's what I'm saying. So the
Yeah.
person, so somebody can be in office for 12 years and get X, and then the ex governor gets elected, he starts at X
Correct.
with no experience. That's what I'm getting at.
Depends on the candidate.
Sure, but
Yeah, you.
it could be the 18-year-old.
It's about,
That's what I'm saying, you know, it could
well,
be
it's
the-
about the role of the
I-
individual.
Yeah.
So.
And point of inquiry, because we do have the fourth highest paid governor in the land, and this is not political. I don't care if they run the Mickey Mouse party. I think it's pretty wild that we pay someone in our state that much money. Historically, when this was put in a statute, do you know, I've heard rumor that it was because of a cost of living adjustment I just wonder, like, for historical context.
Why these salaries are set in statute?
Yes, and why they're so high. Like, I've heard anecdotally that it's because he doesn't have a residence or they don't have a residence in the state of Vermont, like other states do for their governors, and that's why. But I didn't know, I wasn't here when that was written in statute, so I was wondering if you could give some historical
You know,
context.
I don't have a great answer to that. I have heard the same thing that you've heard about, that there is not a governor's mansion, but I don't have a great historical knowledge of why the governor's salary is set in statute. I believe that the other statutory salaries are because these are appointed positions. But I can definitely look into it and see what I can find. And I'm sure that there may be other folks in the room that have some better answers than I do at
It'd
this
be
point.
helpful to know because it is so skewed compared to other positions in our state government. And again, like, I do not care what party you come from. It would just be helpful to be able to explain as to why that is and see if that really is factual in the,
Why the salary is set in statute.
why it's set in statute and if it was set the way that it is to offset the fact that we don't have a governor's mansion. Like, I just keep hearing that and I'm like,
I think you're just seeing the fact that it's like notably higher than the average governor's.
then the higher, yeah,
Yes.
especially for the
Like-
size of our state.
Because like most states, if I recall, have them set in statute, but the conversation is always around it being on the higher end of
Higher
the
end,
50 state matrix.
correct. Like, it's Gavin Newsom in California as of 2024 being paid $242,295 and then our governor. And so it would be useful to explain that to my constituents to say why ours is like that. And if it really is true that we wrote it that way in statute because he doesn't have a mansion and yeah, I don't know, just.
I'll see what I can find.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna. All right, I'm going to move on to section 5. So I've moved through all of the executive branch statutory salaries for these appointed positions within the executive branch. Unless there are any questions about any of that language, I'll move on to the next section, which starts on page 9. You see the reader assistance heading there provides that now we're moving into the next branch of government, which is the judicial branch. So the section 5 provides the base salaries for the chief justice, each associate justice, the chief superior judge, and the magistrate judges, and each judicial bureau hearing officer. So same concept here, that the former 2 fiscal years are crossed out, and we will have new numbers for the next 3 distinct periods of increase. So the next section is with respect to assistant judges. And the probate judges is in section 7. So section 7 provides for those statutory base salaries for the probate judges in each distinct county. And I would just note that you will see that there are some broad swings in salaries across the different districts. And that my understanding is, I know that Terry's here, so she can talk as well. But my understanding is that that reflects part-time versus full-time work. The judges in those counties, depending on their workload, are either full-time or part-time judges. Okay. So next section is section 8, and this is dealing with the sheriffs, statutory salaries for the sheriffs. So the salaries there you'll see are crossed out, and I made an error here on page 13. There's some salaries that need to be crossed out, and we got to put some blanks in there for what's to come. I don't believe that the final negotiations for this group have been completed yet, so I know we don't have numbers yet for these guys. Section 9 is the state's attorneys, statutory salaries for the state's attorneys. And then finally, section 10, this is the language on appropriations. So this sets forth the Pay Act appropriations for FY 27 and 28. So the language provides that the executive branch is funded for the first and second years of the 2-year agreements between the VSEA and the state. And also for the Defender General, non-management supervisory and corrections bargaining units, and the state's attorney's bargaining unit, and the Vermont Troopers Association. So the language that you see on page 15 provides that the general fund, an amount of blank is appropriated from the general fund to the Secretary of Administration for distribution to the departments to fund fiscal year 27 collective bargaining agreements. Same language as for the transportation fund. A certain amount is appropriated from the transportation fund for the Secretary of Administration to distribute to the Agency of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety to fund the collective bargaining agreements. And then other funds provides the administration shall provide additional spending authority to departments through the existing process of excess receipts. This is all sort of standard language that you see each year in the Pay Act. And then you'll see the same language for fiscal year 28 on page 16. Starting on page 17, it moves to the judicial branch. So same sort of language about funding for the Chief Justice, who is authorized to extend the provisions of the judiciary's collective bargaining agreement to the judiciary employees who are not covered by the bargaining agreement. And then lastly, on page 18, subsection C is the legislative branch. So General Assembly, including all of your staff, all of your legislative branch staff, is funded from an appropriation from the general fund. And that is true for fiscal year 27 and 28.
Okay. Questions for council? No, I know I said this to committee heading into this week. We're going to put a very notable amount of time into this piece, of course, the next few days. So, nothing for council? Thank you so much. Up next, we are going to move over to our friends from the judiciary. See you, Terry. Yeah. You guys doing a duet? That is wonderful.
If it's low, I should say. So now it's people.
Yes. Yep. That probably is that. I don't disagree.
Can't do one. Sorry, it was.
All right, once we're done. Get those down here. Thank you.
They're all gone.
We have addiction issues.
Judiciary, the table is yours.
Mr. Chair, Terry Corson, State Court Administrator, and Principal Assistant our Chief of Finance and Administration. I wasn't sure in terms of the timing. Greg is going to do the bulk of the presentation, and then I will answer questions and also do kind of the final part. We weren't sure what information you'd like covered, so Greg has in mind, first, you want to explain, I guess, what the.
Yeah, so we've determined our pay act through negotiation from the VSEA. We have a separate bargaining unit for the judiciary. And we have negotiated a across the board increase in addition to steps, which I think you'll be very familiar with that type of structure. And we have followed what the executive branch will be testifying about, which is a 2% increase in July of 26 and a 2% increase in January of 27. And then in the next fiscal year, a July increase, 2027 of 3%. So it's 2, 2, and 3. And steps included in there. And then the unique piece to the judiciary that's a little bit different is we negotiated a retitling of some of our positions. So we have 4 job descriptions that make up the bulk, about 75% of our bargaining unit. And we have been experiencing turnover in the 25 to 30% range. And in many cases, people were leaving for other jobs in government, particularly in the executive branch. And we had a couple of group reclassification cases that were sitting at the VLRB, the Vermont Labor Relations Board. And one of those decisions came back while we were bargaining. It was not in favor of the judiciary. So we knew that we had to address the turnover and the VLRB decisions. So what we negotiated was to change the job descriptions that would allow them to go up 2 pay grades for our judicial assistants, which is the primary backbone of the courthouses, along with the probate registers and the security positions. That all adds up to $1.5 million in addition to the across the board increase. And then there was a retro pay for one job description that went back 2 years, and that adds 97,000 to that. So all told, for year number 1 would be about 4.1 million. And then in year number 2 would be about 2.65 million. So the 2-year total for the judiciary that we're requesting is 6.724.
724? 6.724, 2 years. Thank you.
And I can go into detail with any of that. I assume there'll be questions at least about the unique pieces that pertain to the judiciary.
Mhm. Do you have that like broken down possibly for something that as something you'd submit as like written testimony at some point?
We can.
Yeah.
We haven't. But
If you could,
we submitted our calculations to JFO, so they have the numbers. We can put a memo together that explains more detail about why we were suffering from a lack of competitiveness.
I think that could be a helpful tool for the committee. Yeah. Thank you. And I do understand that you need to be somewhere else soon.
There's an investiture ceremony for one of our new associate justices I'm involved in, but it's at 3, so I can.
Oh, okay.
Stay here till 4:15.
Gotcha. I didn't know what type of time constraints you might be operating under. Do we have questions for our 2 guests? I mean, I know this is a lot for the committee to start to digest. Right now, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of numbers. So please ask questions. All right, seeing no hands. I guess we'll just use this as the primer moving into the rest of the week.
And the memo, when would you like the memo?
Tomorrow?
Sure.
Yes. That's an achievable goal.
End of day tomorrow?
That is totally fine. Yes.
Great.
End of day tomorrow. Fabulous goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good.
I know, that's why they're down by.
Up next, I have the Commissioner. How you doing, Commissioner?
Great.
We have one of her containers.
Oh, yeah, Terry, hold on, let's cycle through these. Do you want us to just keep getting?
We keep ourselves in the rotation. Gotta send the boats.
One side. Like this.
You're in there. There you go. I know I got one on my hands. It's a little small. Makes me feel better. How are you?
Fantastic.
Wonderful. It's good to see you. And yeah, please.
I'm Beth Fastigi. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Human Resources. And I'm here today to ask the committee and the legislature to support the Pay Act, support the salary increases that fund our collective bargaining agreements, as well as we extend those for the rest of our employees. So to approve that. And I think that Ledge Council has been through this, but this will provide pay increases for fiscal year 27 and 28, and including just in the past, the Pay Act is either a standalone bill or sometimes it's incorporated in the big bill. So last year, it was, discussed separately, but at the end, they put it into the big bill, and they do that at times, and that's to you guys. It doesn't, as long as the language is there, we're happy. And our employees are happy. Finance and management reserves funding as part of budgeting process, but the appropriation for it is actually contained in this language. So it's not, there haven't been funds set aside for employee raises in the big bill. It's just the base salaries. And Pay Act is generally based on the biennium, so that's why we didn't see it last year. And we typically negotiate 2-year collective bargaining agreements rather than 1 year. And that's been more recent history. So again, on behalf of the Department of Human Resources and the administration, we encourage you all to support the Pay Act. And that will, just as far as a status update where we are, we've completed the negotiations with with the Vermont State Employees Association. Department of Human Resources negotiates 3 of those contracts. And we've completed the negotiations for the non-management and supervisory bargaining units. And the agreement and the corrections bargaining unit has not been completed. So we haven't completed bargaining there. But we also, we have an agreement in principle with the Vermont Troopers Association as well, but it hasn't been finalized or ratified yet.
So the troopers are not finalized, and was it?
The troopers are not finalized because they haven't been ratified.
Mhm.
We are still in negotiations with the corrections
With
bargaining.
DOC, okay. That's what I understood from chatter. Is that a hand rep as well?
It is.
Please.
So I currently also serve on the Vermont Veterans Home Board of Trustees. And every meeting, we hear about how we're losing our nursing staff because we can't compete with the hospitals in the area. Are they part of this?
Yes.
So they've negotiated and they've come to this. I know they were in negotiations.
Yes. So the nursing staff, most of the nurses are in our non-management bargaining unit, but then the supervisors would be in our supervisory bargaining unit. So this would cover the raises for them as well. And in addition to our regular pay charts, you probably know this, but our nurses have what's called a market factor. So they actually get a percentage above those collective bargaining agreements, and that's to adjust their pay to what is more market based so that we can hire and retain. And
Right.
I do know we've been having much better success in recent years, in the past year, than we had in the past about hiring nursing staff for the veterans home. And I think that, but you probably know that as a member of the board of trustees. So we're excited to see it going in the right direction.
And those traveling nurses,
Yeah.
they cost us so much.
Right, we're happy to see it going in a positive direction there, so that's great.
That's
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
So you heard from the judiciary, the state's And also the state's attorneys and sheriffs, they conduct their own bargaining with their VSEA units separately. But all the contracts and the contracts of all those, it's all wrapped up into Pay Act. And we are working on we have the numbers and we're working with, Ledge Council to provide them with the numbers so they can insert that all into the draft.
Any idea what the timeline on that looks like?
Hopefully. Any idea of the timeline? So I have Jaron Foster here. He is a person at DHR that is working on doing that project. And I know that he's got a lot of the numbers, but we just got the template. And because we already talked about a little bit, it's not the exact template from last year. It was a little bit different. So we have 2 raises and it's later in my testimony, but we have a planned 2% increase this July and then a planned increase in January, which creates an additional column in there. So like it was we wanted to make sure we had the right template and putting it into the right thing. So we are working on that and it's just how much time we have to manage that this week. So as soon as we get it, I'm expecting we're working on it this week. We'll get it back over to Ledge Council so they can see the numbers.
Okay.
And also simultaneously in the past and previously, the Joint Fiscal Office have been working with us as well. So I've had a hard time talking today.
So as soon as possible is the answer.
Possible. Yeah,
Gotcha.
we are working. So just to go over some of the terms of our collective bargaining agreements, if you'd like to hear them at this point, 2-year contracts, July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2028. And here are just some of the highlights. It's not all of the details, but for our salaries and wages, 2% across the board increase plus continuation of steps in July of 2026. In January, 2% across the board increase plus continuation of steps in January of 2027. And then in July of 2027, a 3% across the board increase plus the continuation of steps. Holidays, Juneteenth and Indigenous Peoples' Day become official premium pay holidays for state employees in those 2 bargaining units. Previously, in the last collective bargaining agreement, the troopers and the corrections bargaining units already made that switch. So this will be helpful for operations because all of our employees would be having the same holiday schedule. And then Bennington Battle Day will be eliminated from the list of paid state holidays. So it's a 2-for-1.
Bennington Battle Day and putting Juneteenth and Native Indigenous people, sorry, upgrade. Our premium. So I guess for newer members, define premium.
Premium holiday would be if you had to work on that holiday. This is a simplified version and it's not exactly correct, but I think it's a way you can understand it. The employees, like for example, in corrections or the troopers that have to be working on those days would get time and a half pay rather than straight time for those working on those holidays. And then I think they also get a day. But so they get extra. It's not just a straight time. So it's if they work that day, they don't get another day off at another time. They get paid time and a half and they get a day off.
Enhanced compensation.
So it's enhanced compensation for working on the holiday. Whereas like on Bennington Battle Day, it was a straight time holiday. So it wasn't quite as lucrative for the employees that are having to work during those periods.
Thank you.
And of course, providing the services we do, there are people that have to work on holidays. Additional benefits or benefits enhancements. So we did make enhancement to the non-medical vision benefits to $200 annually. Previously, it was $100 that could pay for like eye appointment or glasses. And then no deductible for dental services. And then a maximum lifetime orthodontia benefit has increased to $37.50, which is a lot better than it was. And then a maximum amount for dental services during the plan year has been increased to $2,000, excuse me. And we raised the cap on annual leave to 20 hours. And that just means that they can hold, like they don't, if they accumulate too much leave, they don't lose it if they don't use it. So they can hold 20 more hours in their bank. And that's really it from my perspective. In the testimony, I did put links to our website that does have our current collective bargaining agreements, if anyone's interested in looking at those, and also our workforce report, which has a lot of information about the state workforce.
Questions for Commissioner Festigi?
And it's just as far as when you're looking at the salaries that are in statute, in the information that Ledge Council put around, as she said, some of the people or some of the positions in here, it's the salary itself is set in statute. And for the commissioners and secretaries, folks like me, their salary is set, the base is in the statute, and we can provide up to 50% of the base, or for the commissioner of health, 100% of the base. So what you're seeing, these salaries, what you're seeing is kind of the minimum for those salaries. And those are the amounts that we've calculated and budgeted for would be the amounts that are in line with the increases in the collective bargaining agreements. But of course, the legislature has the ability to determine what those salaries would be.
I'm just confused because someone, obviously I can't even talk.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
it's contagious.
my fault.
Some of it seems like a scale and I'm just wondering, like, I'm looking, I guess, for like itemized lists for everything. And some of it seems a little bit vague in the language, like it could be up to this amount. Does that make sense? Like in a tight budgeting year, I'm just
Well, it's a base with a, so in,
with a
with a
scale.
scale, correct?
And that
Yeah.
is kind of strange to me, the scale being in there.
Yeah, the historical context of that scale's
Like,
existence.
It's not unusual for all of our, so the salaries you're seeing here are called employees that are, they're not classified employees, they're exempt employees. So most of our classified employees and some of our employees that are exempt from the classified service have a pay plan. So even though attorneys, for example, are not in the classified service, there is an attorney pay plan. And within that pay plan, there are minimum and maximum amounts, and there's some flexibility in there for management to be able to provide raises based on employees' performance. And so the statutory salaries are in here. There's no pay plan for those folks, and the Secretary of Administration, all of those salaries. So so I could, let's say I make $50,000 a year, and the secretary didn't feel like I was performing well. Even though they had the ability to give me a raise, she would not have to give me a raise. So that's where that management flexibility can be based on performance as well. So it isn't unusual for there to be some flexibility there. In executive compensation, all over the place, and within state government here certainly. And what we budget for and what we put is kind of in line with what's happening in the classified service. Because while some people in leadership roles are appointed and come in from somewhere else, they're all also employees that rise up through the classified service into those roles. And you want to make some kind of an incentive for somebody to take on a leadership role. And so that's why we also want to keep it in line with what the classified pay plan is doing.
Thanks.
Nugent.
Just clarifying, so there's base and there's cost of living and there are steps, and then there's also this negotiation. So there's like a maximum.
So there's what people's current salaries are, and people's current salaries could potentially get the same percentage increase as you would get, as our classified employees are getting. But employees without pay plans don't get steps. So what's included in Pay Act is what we've calculated as the average value of a step. So if all the employees, so all the employees don't get steps every year. It depends on where they are on the pay chart. So the financial value of all the employee steps per year is as an additional 1.9%. And that's the kind of the average that we put in the allowable increase for those exempt employees or those employees that aren't in the classified service and not on the pay plan.
Anything else for the commissioner right now? Like I said, this is just like a big primer on a big conversation today. We're gonna do a lot of work on this week. All right, thank you,
For
Commissioner.
your time and for taking up this really important piece for every employee in state government.
Up next, VSEA. Yay,
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I'm going to have Adam Norton, our strategic analyst, join me if that's okay.
strategic.
Yes, it's very strategic. He's the brains behind the operation. First of all, happy St. Patrick's Day
All of us celebrate.
to all that celebrate. We don't have a ton more to add. I think I want to begin by just saying that we are here to support Governor Scott's Pay Act. We are grateful for his support for this bill. And we are supportive of the additional compensation. As you know, I've come to this committee many times to talk about the nearly, I can't compete with this. This is unfair. We are eager to see the vacancy rate in state government come down, both because it enhances the services to your constituents, but also because it brings down the cost of overtime and reduces the stress that our members experience, their families experience by excessive amounts of overtime. We share the member from Dorset's concern about the traveling nurses. We are grateful for the market factor adjustment. And of course, we'd be enthusiastic if there were another look at that market factor to see if it is truly reflective of the market. I know it's tough down there because it incorporates Albany, which sometimes makes it a little bit more, bumps it up a bit. But it's not that the travelers are bad folks. God bless them. You know, they do good work. There is something to be said for nursing staff that live in the community, that have a commitment, a lifelong commitment to the institution. So we would like to see that explored as well. And so I think I won't say much more. I will say that just to be clear, the payment plan, the attorney payment plan, and the kind of convoluted situation that the commissioner described, that does not apply to the classified employees. She was talking about the statutory employees there. So just want to make sure that's clear to everybody. And I don't know, we're happy to take any questions or any advice you have.
The DOC negotiations.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that thing.
I'm sorry.
How's it looking?
Well, if the governor would just listen to our great ideas and I would say two things. Yeah. So there's actually two units that are still out. One is the corrections unit, and the other is the transport deputies.
Okay.
So the corrections unit is late this year because there was a decertification election, which happily VSEA won. And that caused negotiations to stop during the campaign. So that's why it's late. It's unclear. I don't know how to answer that. I would say that we're likely headed to fact finding. And sometimes a deal comes out of that, but we're not 100% sure. It is the staffing in the corrections department, you heard me say before, is at a crisis level and people are exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So compensation is a major part of what attracts people to that very difficult and challenging work and keeps them there. despite how difficult it is.
So just sort of like that being said, with like the order of operations with this bill, it sounds like we're probably gonna move forward with that as a placeholder with no defined sum.
Yes. My guess is, and Adam can correct me if I'm wrong, is my guess is if you're eager to move this bill, that my prediction is that the corrections unit probably will get added into the Senate side.
That's what I was alluding to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, I'm not 100%.
The time of year and where we're at, which is seeing this for the first language for the first time and everything. I understand that we need to move it reasonably quickly, so.
And unless I convince the commissioner to go back and say to John Berard, Steve Howard, it's not
I do not get
Great idea. On board.
Yes. Text to go out.
Yeah. I'm not gonna hold my breath, but.
Questions for Mr. Howard, Mr. Nord? Okay. Seeing no hands.
All right, thank you very much.
And I have joining us via Zoom, Sergeant O'Neill, Director of Vermont State Troopers Association. Good to see you again, sir.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to join you today, and I apologize I'm not more appropriately dressed. I was in Florida and delayed and can't get home. So this is what I have. Yes.
Sounds like a real tough assignment.
Cooler down here than I expected today, though, so I'm not out in the sun. Thank you again, and I'm here to support the PAY Act as well. We appreciate the agreement we've been able to reach with the administration. We have not formally signed the agreement yet. It needs to go out to our members for ratification, but we are just waiting for that formal draft to get out to our people. I do expect strong support from our members on the agreement. We don't anticipate any issues with getting the ratification completed with our membership. Other than that, I don't know if I have a lot to add. Are there any questions?
I mean, just hearing your satisfaction with the way this is laid out for the people you're representing gives me comfort. Questions from the table? All right, seeing no hands. You can get back to Florida.
Great, thank you. Have a good day.
All right, appreciate the time. All right. We have a little bit of clock here. Anything else from the gallery? Seeing no.
We get the rest of
The joint fiscal
Yes.
office, so I'll be here sort of as a liaison to work through. Yes, yeah.
Look forward to working.
Yeah.
All right, team. So we have a multitude of bills moving around right now. This is something that we're gonna, for the third time, take up a lot of, dedicate a lot of time to this week to get this out. With that, everybody understands the bills they're following and monitoring, so let's just stay on top of those. And with that, I will take us off live until we meet again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for an agenda that is yet to be determined.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, and take us off, Nick.